Graduation day was supposed to be the one moment in my life where everything finally made sense. 4 years of sleepless nights, double shifts at work, scholarships I fought for, loans I promised myself I would repay. This was the finish line. The morning sun was bright, the air felt warm, and the house smelled like freshly brewed coffee. I stood in front of the mirror in my graduation gown, smoothing the fabric down with trembling hands. My heart was racing. Today, I would walk across that stage. Today, I would prove I was more than the quiet one. More than the one everyone underestimated. I walked into the kitchen and found my parents sitting at the table, scrolling through their phones. My mom looked up briefly. "Oh, you're dressed already." My dad sipped his coffee like it was any other Tuesday. I smiled nervously. "Yeah, the ceremony starts at noon. We should leave by 10. Mom blinked. "We?" I hesitated. You are coming, right?" Silence. My dad set his mug down slowly. "Listen, about that." My stomach tightened. Mom sighed dramatically, rubbing her forehead. "We didn't want to stress you out before today." Dad cleared his throat. "We're not going." The words hit my chest like a punch. I stared at them, confused. "What do you mean, you're not going?" Mom waved her hand dismissively. "It's just a graduation ceremony. People graduate every year." My voice shook. "But, it's my graduation." Dad leaned back in his chair, completely calm. "And we're proud. But we already had plans." "Plans?" My throat went dry. "What plans?" Mom glanced at Dad like she was tired of explaining. "We're going to Vegas." I blinked. "Vegas?" Dad nodded like it was obvious. "Your uncle got us tickets. Free hotel. We leave today." My brain struggled to process it. "You're leaving today?" Mom shrugged. "It's a vacation. We deserve it." My hands curled into fists. "My graduation is today." Dad's voice sharpened slightly. "And we already told you we're proud. Isn't that enough?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're skipping my graduation? For Vegas?" Mom rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. You'll still graduate whether we sit there clapping or not." My chest burned. "I wanted you there." Dad sighed, standing up. "Well, life doesn't always work around what you want." He walked past me, grabbing his suitcase from the hall. Mom followed, picking up her purse. I stood frozen. My entire body felt numb. "Wait." Mom paused at the doorway. "Oh, and don't call us during the trip unless it's an emergency." Then she added casually, "We'll FaceTime later, maybe." And then they left. The front door clicked shut. Just like that, I was alone. I stared at the empty hallway, hearing nothing but my own breathing. Graduation day, and my parents had chosen Vegas. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I swallowed the pain, wiped my face, and picked up my cap. If they didn't want to come, fine. I would still walk. I would still graduate, even if the seats were empty. The ceremony hall was huge. Families filled every row, holding balloons, flowers, cameras. I sat with my class, staring into the crowd. Every time someone's name was called, cheers erupted. Parents stood up, mothers cried, fathers clapped proudly. My row felt heavier and heavier as time passed. I kept looking toward the entrance, even though I knew they weren't coming. Hope is stupid like that. Finally, my name was called. I stood up. My legs felt like stone. I walked across the stage. The dean smiled. "Congratulations." I forced a smile back. The applause was polite, not personal. No one was cheering my name. No one was standing for me. The camera flashes weren't for me. I took my diploma, shook hands, and walked off stage. When I sat down, my throat tightened so badly I thought I might break. But I didn't cry, not yet. That evening, I drove home alone. The cap lay on the passenger seat. The diploma was beside it. Everything I worked for, and no one had been there. The house was empty. Their suitcases were gone. The lights were off. The silence screamed. I walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge. Barely any food. On the counter was a sticky note from Mom. "Don't forget to feed the neighbor's cat." Back in 5 days. 5 days. Vegas was more important than their own child. My hands shook as I set the note down. I needed air. I grabbed my keys again and went out. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. "Dad." I stared at the screen before answering. "Hello?" His voice was loud, full of background noise and music. "Hey, guess what? Vegas is amazing." I said nothing. Mom chimed in, laughing. "We just got to the casino." Dad chuckled. "You should see this place." I swallowed. "You skipped my graduation." Mom sighed impatiently. Here we go. Dad's tone hardened. We already said we're proud. Stop acting like we abandoned you. I laughed bitterly. You did abandon me. Mom snapped. You're an adult. Deal with it. Then Dad said something that made my blood run cold. Anyway, we need you to send some money. I froze. What? Dad's voice turned casual. Our cards aren't working. My stomach dropped. What do you mean your cards aren't working? Mom scoffed. The bank flagged something. Just send us a couple thousand until it clears. A couple thousand. My voice rose. You want money, after skipping my graduation? Dad's voice sharpened. Don't start. Just do it. I gripped my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. I don't have a couple thousand lying around. Mom snapped. Yes you do. That savings account. The one you've been building. My heart stopped. How do you know about that? Silence. Then Dad said calmly. We're your parents. We know everything. My stomach twisted violently. My savings. The account I had been quietly building for years. The emergency fund. The future. I realized something horrifying. They knew about it, because they had access. My voice dropped. Did you take money from it? Dad scoffed. Don't be ridiculous. Mom laughed. Oh please. We wouldn't need to ask if we had. Then she added. Just send it. Or we'll handle it ourselves. The line went dead. I sat there, shaking. Handle it ourselves? I didn't sleep that night. At 8 a.m., I drove straight to my bank. My hands were trembling as I walked inside. The teller smiled politely. Good morning, how can I help you? My voice was sharp. I need to check my account. Right now. I slid my card across the counter. She typed for a moment. Then her expression changed. Ma'am. My stomach dropped. What? She hesitated. There have been multiple withdrawals. The room spun. How much? She looked at the screen again. Almost everything. My throat went dry. What do you mean almost everything? She turned the monitor slightly. I stared at the numbers. My savings, my life savings, gone. My entire body went numb. The teller said softly. The account was accessed through an authorized parent link. Authorized parent link. My parents. They had taken it. My graduation gift to myself. Stolen. My hands clenched. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared. Then I whispered. Print every transaction. The teller nodded slowly. As the paper slid out of the printer, I felt something inside me shift. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. And they had no idea what kind of trap they just stepped into. I left the bank with the printed transactions clutched so tightly in my hand that the paper was crumpling. But I didn't care. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady. Because now I understood something clearly. My parents didn't skip my graduation by accident. They didn't forget. They didn't have plans. They went to Vegas because they thought I was weak. Because they thought I'd stay quiet. Because they thought my savings was theirs. They thought I would accept it. They were wrong. Very wrong. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the transaction list. Withdrawals, transfers, cash advances, all started the moment they landed. Vegas. It wasn't a vacation. It was a robbery. And the worst part? They didn't even feel guilty enough to hide it. They felt entitled, like my life was their emergency fund. My phone buzzed again. Mom. I didn't answer. Another buzz. Dad. Then a text. Dad. Send money ASAP. This is embarrassing. Embarrassing. That word made me laugh out loud. My graduation wasn't embarrassing. My pain wasn't embarrassing. The only embarrassing thing was how confident they were that they could keep doing this. I drove home. I didn't cry. I didn't break down. Instead, I opened my laptop, logged into every account I had. First, I cut access. The parent link, gone. Passwords changed. Two-factor enabled. Then I called the bank again. And this time my voice was calm. I want fraud paperwork. The person on the phone hesitated. But these were authorized users. I smiled bitterly. They were authorized to support me, not drain me. A pause. Then, we can begin an investigation. Good. Let it begin. That afternoon, I finally returned the call. Dad answered instantly. About time. His voice was sharp, angry. You need to fix this now. I said nothing. Mom jumped in. Do you know how humiliating it is to have our card declined in front of people? I inhaled slowly. You mean, like how humiliating it was walking across my graduation stage alone? Silence. Then Dad snapped. That's not the same thing. I laughed quietly. No, you're right. It's worse. Mom scoffed. Oh stop. Graduation is nothing compared to real life. My voice dropped, cold. Real life? Real life is you stealing my savings. The line went dead silent. Then Dad's voice came slower. What did you just say? I held the phone tighter. I went to the bank. Mom's breath caught. Dad growled. You had no right. I almost smiled. No right. You mean like you had no right to empty my account? Dad's voice turned dangerous. Don't accuse us. I flipped open the transaction sheet. I have the records. Mom suddenly shouted. Those withdrawals were necessary. Necessary. I blinked. Necessary? Dad snapped. We raised you. Mom chimed in. You wouldn't even have that money without us. My stomach twisted. They really believed that. They truly believed my life belonged to them. Then Dad said the sentence that sealed everything. Send us the rest. I froze. The rest? Mom's voice sharpened. Yes. Don't play stupid. There's more. We know you hide money. I stared into the air. They had taken nearly everything. And still wanted more. I whispered. You're insane. Dad snapped. We're your parents. Mom added. And you will help us. Help. That word made something snap inside me. I spoke softly. Okay. Silence. Mom blinked. Okay. I let my voice turn calm, almost obedient. I'll send it. Dad exhaled like he'd won. That's better. Mom sighed dramatically. Finally. I continued. But first. A pause. I need one thing. Dad grunted. What? I looked down at the paper again. All those withdrawals, they were from the account connected to the trust. Silence. Mom's voice went sharp. What trust? I smiled faintly. The one Grandma left. Dead silence. Then Dad laughed nervously. There is no trust. I let the quiet stretch. Then. Yes, there is. Mom whispered. What are you talking about? I leaned back. You didn't think Grandma left the house to your name. Dad's voice rose. She wouldn't do that. I tilted my head. She did. And she left it to me. My parents went silent like someone had cut the music. Then Mom hissed. You're lying. I smiled. No. Dad's voice suddenly cracked. You're trying to scare us. I whispered. I'm trying to tell you. You stole from the wrong person. The line exploded. Mom screaming. Dad shouting. How dare you? That's our family. You're ungrateful. I listened quietly. Then I said calmly. I'll meet you when you get back. Dad snapped. We're coming back tomorrow. I nodded even though they couldn't see. Good. Then I added. Oh, and Dad? What? I smiled. Don't use any more cards tonight. Silence. Mom. Why? I replied softly. Because the investigation starts in 1 hour. Then I hung up. That night, I didn't sleep. I planned. Carefully. Because revenge wasn't about screaming. Revenge was about timing. And they had handed me the perfect weapon. Their greed. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. Blocked charges. Declines. Calls from unknown numbers. Then one voicemail. Dad's voice. Panicked. Call me now. I didn't. Then Mom. Please. This is an emergency. Still no. Then finally. Bank alert. Fraud review escalated. Perfect. At 6 p.m., they landed. And by 7 p.m., they were at my front door. Dad pounded like a man possessed. I opened slowly. They looked wrecked. Not tired from travel. Tired from fear. Mom's face was pale. Dad's jaw was tight. He shoved his phone toward me. Our accounts are frozen. Mom hissed. What did you do? I stepped aside calmly. Come in. They stormed inside. Dad shouted. You ruined us. I laughed softly. No, you froze yourselves. Mom snapped. We needed that money. I stared at her. For what? Dad barked. To live. I tilted my head. To gamble. Silence. Mom's face twitched. Dad stepped closer. You will fix this. I whispered. No. Dad's voice turned low. Then we'll take what's ours. I smiled. That's the problem, Dad. It was never yours. Then I reached into a folder on the table. And slid one paper across. Dad frowned. Mom squinted. Then her eyes widened. What is this? I spoke calmly. Grandma's lawyer. Dad's face drained. Mom's voice shook. She contacted a lawyer? I nodded. She left everything documented. Dad whispered. No. I pointed. The house. The accounts. The trust. Mom's mouth fell open. Dad stared like the room was collapsing. And then, I said the line that finally broke them. You didn't steal from your child. You stole from an inheritance protected by law. Silence. Mom whispered. Protected? I nodded. And the lawyer is coming tomorrow. Dad's voice cracked. What lawyer? I smiled. The one Grandma hired years ago. To make sure you couldn't touch it. Dad stumbled back. Mom sat down hard. Then she whispered. We didn't know. I leaned forward. That's why you didn't care. Dad snapped suddenly. You set us up. I smiled coldly. No, you set yourselves up the moment you chose Vegas over my graduation. Mom's voice turned desperate. Please. Dad lowered his voice. We can fix this. I stared. Fix it? You emptied my future. You skipped the one day I needed you. And you thought I'd stay quiet. I stood slowly, but I didn't raise my voice. That was the power. I whispered. You wanted the owner? Dad blinked. What? I smiled. Tomorrow, you'll meet them. Mom didn't sleep that night. I know because I heard her pacing in the guest room like a trapped animal. Dad sat on my couch for hours, staring at the folder like it was a bomb. Neither of them knew what to do. Because for the first time, they weren't in control, and the scariest thing for people like them is realizing the person they underestimated is holding the pen now. The next morning, the doorbell rang exactly at 9 a.m. Dad flinched. Mom whispered, That's them. I stood calmly and opened the door. A tall older man in a crisp suit stood there, carrying a leather briefcase. Next to him was a younger assistant holding documents. He gave me a polite nod. Good morning. Then he looked past me, directly at my parents. His expression didn't change, but his voice carried weight. My name is Mr. Langford. Dad's face drained. Mom's lips trembled. Mr. Langford stepped inside. I represent the estate of Margaret Caldwell. Grandma. The name hit them like a slap. Dad cleared his throat. Margaret was my mother. Mr. Langford nodded once. Yes, and she was very clear that you should not be trusted with what she built. Silence. Mom's voice cracked. She said that? Mr. Langford opened his briefcase. She said much more. He placed a document on the table. The property inheritance was finalized years ago. Dad leaned forward, hands shaking. That's impossible. The house was always meant for the family. Mr. Langford's eyes flicked up. It is meant for family. Then he turned slightly toward me. That is why she left it to her granddaughter. Mom gasped. Dad stood up so fast the chair scraped. No. Mr. Langford didn't blink. Yes. Mom's voice rose in panic. We are her parents. Mr. Langford's tone stayed calm. And yet you withdrew $47,892 from an account connected to that trust in less than 48 hours. Dad froze. Mom whispered. How do you know that? Mr. Langford slid another paper forward. Because the bank reported it. Dad's throat bobbed. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Dad whispered. It was an accident. Mr. Langford tilted his head slightly. An accident? You took cash advances at casinos. Silence. You booked luxury suites. Silence. You bought jewelry. Silence. Mr. Langford's voice sharpened. That was not an accident. Dad slammed his hand down. We raised her. Mr. Langford met his eyes. You raised her, while planning to drain her. Mom cried out. We were struggling. I finally spoke, voice low. You weren't struggling. You were celebrating. Dad's face twisted. You think this makes you powerful? I didn't smile. It makes me free. Mr. Langford opened another folder. There is more. Dad's breath hitched. More? Mr. Langford nodded. Margaret anticipated this exact behavior. Mom whispered. What behavior? He looked directly at her. Greed. Dad's voice rose. This is insane. Mr. Langford calmly continued. She placed a protection clause. I blinked. What clause? Mr. Langford turned to me. If any beneficiary attempt is made by your parents to access or misuse the trust. He tapped the paper. It triggers an automatic legal escalation. Dad froze. Mom covered her mouth. Mr. Langford finished. Which means they are now legally barred from ever receiving a single dollar from the estate. Dead silence. Dad's face went gray. Mom's knees buckled and she sat. No. Mr. Langford nodded once. Yes. Dad whispered. She disowned us? Mr. Langford corrected calmly. She protected her granddaughter. Dad's voice cracked. She wouldn't do that. Mr. Langford leaned forward slightly. She did. And she wrote a letter. Mom jerked her head up. A letter? Mr. Langford pulled out an envelope. Sealed. Old. He placed it in front of me. She asked that you read this only if this day ever came. My fingers hovered. The room felt like it stopped breathing. I opened it. And began. My sweet girl, if you are reading this, then they did what I feared. They always loved control more than love itself. I saw how they treated you. I saw how they overlooked you. And I refused to let them take your future the way they took your peace. You are not a spare part in your own life. You are the owner of it. Do not beg. Do not break. Stand tall. and let them learn what it feels like to lose what they thought they owned. Love always, Grandma. Mom sobbed. Dad looked like the air had been punched out of him. For the first time, there was no excuse, no anger, just truth. Dad whispered, "She hated us." I shook my head slowly. "She didn't hate you. She just finally saw you clearly." Mr. Langford cleared his throat. Now, he placed one final paper down. "The matter of restitution." Dad snapped back. "What?" Mr. Langford's voice was stone. "You will repay every cent withdrawn." Mom cried. "We can't." Mr. Langford nodded. "Then assets will be seized." Dad shouted. "You can't do this." Mr. Langford raised an eyebrow. "We already are." Silence. Dad looked at me, desperate. "Please." His voice broke. "You're really going to ruin us?" I stared at him. Then I spoke softly. "You ruined yourselves." Mom reached out, trembling. "We made mistakes." I stepped back. "Mistakes are forgetting a call." This was theft. Mr. Langford stood. "My assistant will coordinate repayment." He turned to me. "And as of today, the home, the trust, and all connected assets are fully under your control." He nodded respectfully. "Congratulations." Then he left. The door clicked shut, and suddenly, it was just me and them. No lawyer, no paperwork, just silence. Dad's shoulders slumped. Mom whispered, "What happens now?" I inhaled, then answered calmly, "Now? You go home." Dad whispered, "And you?" I looked around the house. The house they never cared about until they couldn't have it. "I stay." Mom sobbed harder. Dad stared. "You'll just cut us off?" I didn't yell. I didn't insult. I didn't cry. I simply said, "You skipped my graduation to gamble away my future. You taught me exactly what family means to you." Dad whispered, "We're sorry." I nodded once. "I believe you." Then I paused. "And I forgive you." Their heads snapped up. Hope. But then I finished. "Forgiveness doesn't mean access." Silence. Dad's face crumpled. Mom whispered, "So this is it." I opened the door. "This is it." Dad hesitated. Then slowly, they walked out. That night, I stood in my empty living room. The same place where I once felt small. The same place where I once thought I had no power. I looked at Grandma's letter again. And for the first time, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt protected. Because the trap wasn't revenge. The trap was truth. And the truth was simple. They thought my savings was theirs. They thought my graduation didn't matter. They thought I would stay quiet. They were wrong. Very wrong. And that night, I finally graduated into my real life.